This comes from Red Baron. Only question we're going to answer. He said, what's the identity of the current Pistons team? Great teams have an identity, and right now they're still figuring out who they are.
That's a great question. It's identity and culture are two things that I feel like have been beaten over the heads of Pistons fans for the last few years as like a thing of, oh, we can just, create this. Like I know like the minute Troy got here back in 2020, it was like the whole restore, and not every franchise can restore, and we're going to restore the Pistons back to what they used to be. And then they would talk about the emphasis on defense, and they would remain one of, if not the worst defensive team in the NBA year after year. It became a thing of like culture and identity just kind of being buzzwords, where JB came in this summer and talked about, hey, I really want the Pistons. I want Pistons fans to be able to tune in, February, March, and be like, this is Detroit Pistons basketball. This is a brand of basketball that I can recognize. And if we want to talk about identity or culture, I'm going to point to Ron Holland. Ron Holland is someone who hasn't really gotten the swing of things yet, right? Like it's clear that he is very young. It's clear that he is also very raw. But at the same time, he is not backing down to anybody on that court. He is like the peskiest, most pain in your ass defender he can possibly be. And I mentioned this on Koo's podcast where I said Asar has like natural gifts on defense. Like he just has a level of like athleticism, and then also just like how quickly he shifts his feet. He's a very like technical defender, if that makes sense. Like he's very much like a guy who, if you want to study how to play defense, you go and watch Nassar Thompson. But if you want to study how to just be a pain in someone's ass, you go and watch Ron Holland. Like, especially just because I think he knows he can't necessarily match up with these guys on offense yet. And he has to contribute something out there. And he's not afraid of anybody, especially on the defensive end, where he's just going to get in your face. He's going to be extremely physical. He's going to fight you for the ball. And then if you try to start any shit with him, he's not taking any shit. Looking at that, you mentioned the whole thing with Niang, like that stood out to me. Like he immediately, Niang was like pulling on him as he was coming up the court, shoves him across half court. And then, that led to a whole scuffle for a few minutes. But like that, I would say is the identity of the Detroit Pistons team, is even if they're outmanned, even if, they're not matching up perfectly against like a good team, they're not backing down. And I think this is a team that, I can swear on this podcast, talks a lot of shit. That's been something I noticed a lot. Like they talk a lot of shit, especially like a Malik Beasley, Ron Holland, Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren. Like those are all guys that talk a lot of shit. And it's just a team that like, if you're gonna get a win against us, you're really gonna have to die for it. Like you're gonna have to like truly go to war to get a win. And I think that would be the identity of this Detroit Pistons team, is just like it's been the thing with the city as a whole, like grit. I would say this is a team, you want to talk about like the biting the kneecaps off thing, like that would probably be the identity of this team. And I mentioned this kind of to my brother after the JB press conference, and I was like, I feel like he has like that level of Dan Campbell, not necessarily like coach, because Campbell now is leading a Super Bowl contender, but he has that level of just kind of testosterone, like building, like, like he wants to get out there with the guys type of thing. That it's like, hey, we're not taking shit from anybody. And if you want to come and get a win against us, like you're going to have to fight us for it. And I think that would be the identity of this Detroit Pistons team.
I actually think I saw the identity of this team in the third quarter yesterday. I think that's the way they want to play for a full 48 minutes. And obviously this is a young team, so they're going to be inconsistent. But to answer your question, Red Baron, what is the identity of the current Pistons? I think to what Zar said, we're calling it grit now, but I know, Zar, you're a little bit younger than I am. We used to call it blue collar when I was around, 12, 14. That was the word. Just go to work, play hard on both ends of the floor. I think that's still what they want to do. Obviously, you're going to have to modernize that type of defense. You're going to have to modernize the way you defend because you can't be hand checking people. Like saw Sar in last game, hand checking. I believe it was Jason Tatum or Jalen Brown. I can't remember who it was, but
You mean Ron?
yeah. Who did I say? Sar?
Asar. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish Asar was actually healthy. But yeah, I think they're just going to have to modernize the way they want to play defense in 2024. But I think that Boston game in the third quarter, that's the way they want to play. That's what JB was talking about because that third quarter, I think they went on a 26-8 run to close out that third quarter. They made great defensive stops against Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown and all those guys out there. I think that's the way they want to play basketball. So you got to see glimpses of what this team could be defensively and what JB is trying to instill on them of playing smart, sound basketball. So to me, I think that's where the identity and the culture of like how they want to play their style of basketball in 2024 with the Pistons.
Yeah, and I would say like it's just like that aspect of like not taking shit, really. Like that
Yeah.
blue collar, like fit the identity of the city as a whole. Like it's just it's what you want to see from a team like this, and it's a thing of like if they want to start winning games, it's also going to be like kind of ugly in a sense. You know what I mean? Where like they're if like they get a win, they're gonna really earn it, and if like a team beats them, that team has to really earn it. So it's really just a thing about like earning it as a whole.
Yeah. I think like when I was watching that third quarter, I was like, okay, that's the way they want to play. That's what JB was talking about because you had mentioned it with Troy Weaver, like restore. I've never seen a team shoot 3-pointers and win a championship. I was like, well, obviously you haven't watched Golden State or Boston because that's the way you win in the modern NBA. But not gonna bash him too much. But some of like his old press conferences are just soundbite gold. I kind of miss the those press conferences if I'm being honest.